Hi, everybody. My name is Derek, and welcome to another fun-packed episode of Building SaaS on AWS. This week, we're going to talk to Rockset, and we're going to talk to Nadine, but more on that later. If you haven't seen the show before, the show is all about helping you build your next SaaS product on AWS, or indeed, if you've got an existing SaaS product that you need help with or you need ideas on how to improve, this is also the show for you. We come to you live from Twitch slash AWS channel every 2 weeks. And so hopefully, if you haven't seen the past episodes, I'll push up the banner where you can get the past episodes. If you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. There's a playlist, and that's a really bad URL to copy. So copy it now. So that's the show in a nutshell. But today, Christopher, what are we going to be talking about? Do you want to introduce yourself and lead into the show?
Sure. I am Christopher Logan. I'm a senior manager for solutions architecture here in Australia. Today, I'm excited mainly because, well, one, we have an amazing partner in Rockset, but I think viewers today are going to see something that they can use immediately without having to build a whole bunch of stuff, which is always exciting. So today we have Nadine Farah, from a senior developer advocate from Rockset, who is ultimately going to be the star of our show. And we have Sunil, hi Nadine. And we have Sunil Ramachandra, who is a senior solutions architect for AWS, here to support us too. So welcome, Sunil, as well. This is your first time on the show also. So I'll turn over to Nadine to give us a bit more of an intro into who Rockset is and for yourself as well.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on the show. So I'm Nadine. I'm the developer advocate at Rockset, and I've been at Rockset for just over 2.5 years, largely leading the developer initiatives and community initiatives. I was formerly based in the Bay Area. I actually reside in downtown Seattle, so we're just a couple blocks down from some of the AWS offices. So let me give a quick overview of Rockset. So Rockset is a real-time analytics platform built for the cloud that allows customers to run sub-second analytics on real-time data. So what customers can build with Rockset is anything like real-time logistics tracking, real-time personalization, or really anything under the umbrella of user-facing analytics.
Awesome.
Cool. So I think that's that's all about Rockset, Nadine. Thanks very much. and a great product overview. Sorry, this is I'll say, if everybody doesn't know, we're all in different parts of the world. So I'm in Perth, West Australia. It's really, really early, and I really need coffee. And we've got Christopher, who's on the East Coast of Australia, and Nadine and Sunil, who are in North America. So we're quite a global show today. So Sunil, I think I'll pass to you next to kick things off today and ask the next question.
Sure. Thanks, Derek. My first question to you, Nadine, is how can Rockset help our customers build their SaaS? And what's the major advantage of using Rockset rather than building something by themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so let me just preface and say building a real-time database is not easy. And there are a lot of challenges you'll have to take into consideration when you're working with real-time data. And a lot of these challenges are not taken into consideration with some of the technologies in the market. Like, for example, batch technologies is a great example. And this is important because SaaS companies want to incorporate insight so they can make better, kind of better decision making, and they can be data driven, but also they want to deliver these insights to customers as well. And so when you're working with real-time data, you can really improve customer experiences and product usability that can eventually lead to increased revenue, customer retention, and so on. So one of the major challenges SaaS companies can face can come with scaling. Separately, one of the real challenges with working with real-time data is working with streaming data. It can be extremely bursty in nature. So if you work with clickstream data or IoT sensor data, you may have encountered that. Like you can have unpredictable writes, right? So you might have high volume writes, and then all of a sudden the volume can subside. So you want to build, right, a real-time database that can easily scale up or down in just compute depending on how much writes are happening to the database, right? Being able to handle this unpredictable load of writes. The other thing that you'll also want to scale is query compute, right? So let's say you're a SaaS platform, you have some sort of event or sales going on, you have a lot of customers on your platform, and then separately, you're also running complex analytical queries. You want to be able to scale query compute to handle that type of workload. And separately, when let's say the event or sale is over, the workload subsides, you want to be able to scale down the compute as well. So this is another thing you'll want to take into consideration. And then finally, you also want to scale storage for data. So in order to easily scale compute, you want to build a real-time database that is cloud native, right? And so Rockset is that. Rockset is cloud native. It takes advantage of a lot of AWS cloud resources to scale in just compute, query compute, and storage independently, right? And this means that if you're a SaaS company, you don't have to over provision or under provision resources, and it becomes very efficient to do real-time analytics. I'll just like to say, when you think of real-time analytics and when we're working with real-time analytics, it's a very a compute intensive process. So you want to be able to scale your compute accordingly so you can control costs, and it's much more cost effective to work with real-time data.
Nadine, so you mentioned this already, but it's probably worth discussing a bit further about why is the real-time nature of this so important, as opposed to a lot of other scenarios where maybe it's too hard, hasn't even been a thought, but there is something specific about why real-time analytics on this data is important.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So for me, real-time analytics is important because making fast decisions on fresh data is a lot more better and valuable than making slow decisions on stale or late arriving data. So in the past, every company wanted to become a SaaS company. And now what we're seeing is that every company wants to become a data company. So in order for that to happen, SaaS companies need to enhance their decision-making process in order to differentiate themselves, right? And so they need to make use of their data on their application to deliver compelling user experiences, right? And so a really good example I can share with Command Alkon. Command Alkon is a Rockset customer, and they have a real-time logistics tracking platform that their customers use. So if concrete is arriving late, right, it can solidify. So there's a very specific time window when concrete leaves and it needs to arrive to some sort of destination site. And if it's too late, it will solidify. So the customers need to have real-time visibility into where the concrete is at. So, and in order for that to happen, Command Alkon needs access to real-time data. So the other thing that you want to think about also is that when you have a SaaS platform, you don't want to take a lot of time for your queries to load, right? Or else you're not building these compelling or sappy user experiences. And I think we can all relate to Facebook and Instagram, right? If you're on Facebook or Instagram, you get these new recommendations and it pretty much happens instantly. And in fact, I actually have been targeted on Instagram ads. My table has come from Instagram. I was searching for tables and all of a sudden I get all these recommendations about tables and I bought it. It's these types of compelling user experiences that can have users come back to the platform, have usage on the platform and things like that. So this is, in my opinion, this is where real-time data can become a differentiator for SaaS companies.
Awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. I always also buy tables from the internet, but not with confidence. You seem to have had a lot of confidence in your table purchase there, Nadine.
Oh, so I when I was coming from San Francisco to Seattle, I had to get a whole suite of furniture. I had nothing coming in. So I was like looking for this like adjustable table on Instagram.
Yep.
And I got targeted by this and I kind of did my research and was like, okay, this looks kind of legit. I'll buy it. And actually I've been really happy about it. So yeah.
Yeah, nice. Tick win. Awesome. That's a great story and use case, Nadine. Thanks for sharing that. But if users have people watching have seen the show before, they're always expecting a demo. So Nadine, you don't happen to have a demo with you, do you?
Actually, I do.
Wow.
Yes.
Can we see it? Can I put it up like that?
Let's go ahead and
Yeah.
So
Magic.
I have, okay, so I'm just going to walk through a quick demo on it. I'm not going to show you how to get started just yet, but we're going to walk through a quick demo. So when I go into collections, I have this AWS workspace, and I just have live Twitter data, and you can see that it's coming from Amazon Kinesis. It's been updated, just under a minute, and there's over 4.2 million documents on this. Nice. So it's quite a lot of documents. So if I click on this, we have live Twitter data. You can kind of see the metadata about the collection, when it's been updated, the documents that are there, and then the available fields to query, right? And so if I want to query this, I can just click on query this collection. And you'll see that the query editor pops up and it says, I'm just selecting star from this collection. And I'm just going to actually, instead of returning 10 records, I'm just going to return 1 record. So it's just easy to digest. You can see, I'm going to just show the JSON format because that's kind of easier to digest, but you can see how deeply nested this data is. So you have all these fields, and then you have this entities fields, right, that I'm highlighting. I don't know if you can see this really not, but I'm going to select it in just a minute, but I just wanted to show you what this data shape is looking like. And then you can see like how there's like 2 or 3 levels nested, right? It's actually quite gnarly to do this. So Rockset is literally ingesting JSON data that's coming in from Kinesis, right? So the next thing that I'm going to show.
Sorry, Nadine. Can I just stop you in the middle of the demo?
Yeah.
We have one question from the chat. I don't think we've answered it yet. Is how long has Rockset been around, and approximately what sort of customers and how many do you have?
Oh yeah, so Rockset has been around since around 2016. And last I remember, we have about 6,000 users on the platform, and they're running over like, I don't know, hundreds of millions of queries per month. So cool. Quite a lot.
Nice. Thanks. So sorry to interrupt. Let's get back into the demo.
Oh no, yeah, that's great. So yeah, I'm just showing you to show the data shape. So now we're gonna select entities because that's the nested field that we want to query. And I'm just limiting again to 1 record because we just want to show you what this looks like. And now you can see how nested this data is. So one of the great things on Rockset is you can actually unnest nested data at query time, which is pretty cool. So I have a query that I've already written that I will share just for the sake of the demo. Let me go ahead and pull that up really quick. And basically all we're going to do is we're going to grab the username, what they tweeted, and what ticker symbol they tweeted from this nested data. Okay. Nice. So I'm just going to put this here, and then I'm going to bring this down a little bit. And then I'm just going to paste this query here. And then instead of days, I'm just going to put 1 day here. Okay. And then that's that. So all I'm doing is I'm running this function called next, and it's just breaking up the structure entities field so we can run it. So when I run it, you can see if I go back to the table, I think it'll be easier to see this on the table. Mm-hmm. You can see that we get name, the text, and the ticker symbol. So you can actually get some real-time insights and understand more about the data by doing this. And you're curious about unnest, which is a really cool function on Rockset. You can go to rockset.com/docs and then just kind of search for unnest on the text field. And then you can see how you can use that to unnest the data. There's lots of things you can do with Twitter data, but this is a really cool thing that I can show.
Yeah, and a lot of demos you see are on Twitter data because it is a rich data set that's currently being appended to. So
yeah, I think, I don't know if it's increased, but let's see if it's actually increased really quick. We said 4.2. Yeah, so it's kind of going up. It's last been updated at 6:43. So yeah, it's live Twitter.
Yep. Nice. Cool. Alrighty, that's a nice way to start. Nice demo. So who's next with the question? That's Sunil with your next question, I think. Over to you,
Sure.
Sunil.
Thanks for the wonderful demo, Nadine. Let's dive into the architecture here a bit. Can you explain to us what's really unique about Rockset's architecture, and how is it deployed, and how does it scale on AWS? I would love to know.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm gonna go ahead and reshare my screen, and I'm gonna actually pull up my slides that I created.
There we
Don't
go.
worry, they're really easy slides. They're all just architecture diagrams for the most part. Okay.
I love these architecture diagrams because they're right, they're not complex, they're right simple, so everybody can understand what's going on.
Yeah, this is going to be simple. Before I get started, I want to introduce our developer character named Pharaoh. Pharaoh is on the far right here, and Pharaoh is going to be making some requests in this architecture diagram, and we'll get into more of that later. So Rockset.
Is Pharaoh a cat? Is that a cat?
No, it's an Arctic ferret.
Oh.
Oh, it's a ferret. Right. Sorry.
Cool, right? It's cute. So Rockset uses the ALT architecture, which stands for the aggregator leaf Taylor architecture. And basically it allows each microservice to scale up or down depending on the demand. And when I mean up or down, I mean the Taylors, which is in the purple box, the leaves, which is in this gray diamond, and then the pink circles, which are the aggregators. These are the microservices. And Rockset chose the ALT architecture because queries need to be fast, scalable, and really simple to use. And I'll give an example of each of these when we go through the architecture. So the way that this works is that data can be ingested by various sources. You can see like data streams, data warehouses, operational database, and data lakes. Basically any data source can be ingested in Rockset, or you can directly write to a collection. And the data that's coming in is semi-structured in format like JSON. And I'm going to point to the Kinesis stream. All of it was JSON, and we directly queried JSON data. And the goal is to analyze the semi-structured data to get real-time insights, similar to what I did in the Kinesis demo. So once the Taylors read the data that's coming in, they write it to a distributed log. And the distributed log makes data durable and can also tolerate heavy writes. And it's also persistent, so you won't lose data. And then that's in step 2. And then in step 3, the leaf processes tail the data that's coming in from this distributed log and index it, and then turn it into a format that's queryable on Rockset. So I'm going to pause here and talk a little bit about converge index, which is the indexing method Rockset used to index data. So we use converge index, and every field in the document is indexed via a row index, similar to like Postgres and MySQL, an inverted index, similar to something that's inspired by Elasticsearch, and a columnar index, similar to what you might find in data warehouses. And by doing this, when you're indexing real-time data, you allow for efficient retrieval, so you can get really incredible query performance, but also you get like query flexibility. You can write different types of queries, and you don't have to really worry too much about the access patterns. And so this is how Rockset gets low latency queries. So once the data is indexed and stored on the leaves, now Pharaoh is on an application, on your SaaS application, basically, and doing things, and it's making a request to get some user-facing analytics. Let's go. So it's hitting the aggregators, and the aggregators will basically get the data from the leaves and return the results back to the application, and then you get the results, and that's how it works. And the aggregators are basically services that perform aggregations and joins and so on and so forth. So to recap with the ALT architecture, there are the tailors that ingest the data, right, to make it queryable. There is the leaves that index and store the data, and then finally you have the aggregators that serve the queries. So we talk about one of the challenges with working with real-time data was dealing with bursty, right? Streaming data can be extremely bursty in nature and unpredictable. So the tailors can actually scale up and down on the volume depending how much volume that's coming in, but it doesn't affect the leaves and aggregators. If the total of the data size increases, you can scale the leaves, which is, the little gray diamond. And then separately, if the complexity of your queries increase, you can scale the aggregators, which is the little pink circles over there. But because each service is separated, and just compute doesn't conflict with storage, which doesn't conflict with query compute, right? So each services are independent, scale independently of each other, and having tailors scale up doesn't affect the other two microservices. So this is how Rockset separates ingest compute, storage, and query compute, and can scale independently on workloads.
Very, very cool, Nadine. That's a great explanation of what is quite a complex architecture, but you can see why, and we've explained well why that's important to handle the scaling and the quite an increase of scaling over a short period of time. We do have some questions from the chat, and just going to post them up here. First one is, how does Rockset handle inserts, updates, and deletes? So let's just be completely, can we answer that one just to be completely clear to our viewers?
Yeah, so Rockset is a mutable database. And so effectively, if a field needs to get updated, Rockset can update the field in line, and it doesn't have to re-index the whole collection to do that. Other systems are immutable, so you might have to create a separate table to do the updates and things like that, but Rockset is a mutable database, so that's how it does it.
Cool, awesome. And then the second question that we have is from Blue Door Studio. So we've had a bit of a think about this. So Blue Door Studio is asking, does Rockset support AWS private link to further secure access between a customer VPC and the Rockset SaaS solution? So I know Sunil has posted some information about that in the chat, but do you want to add anything to that, either Nadine or Sunil for viewers?
Oh no, let me check the chat. I think that's fine. I don't need to add any more to that. I think that's good.
Yeah,
but I can say that Rockset is also on the AWS marketplace and is also like an AWS partner.
Awesome. Nothing to add, Sunil? Do you want to add anything? Just summarize what you put in the chat.
Sure. So you could enable private link, and if you're already using private link, you can restrict access to your organization by allowing connections to Rockset over AWS private link. So it's not enabled by default, but to request private link connectivity, you can contact support@rockset.com, and we also can provide the documentation for that.
Cool, awesome. Thanks for answering the questions for our viewers in the chat. If you just joined the show, you're watching Building SaaS on AWS, and we have the pleasure of being joined by Nadine from Rockset, who's just taking us through some demos and an overview of the ALT architecture Rockset and how cool that is. So what are we going to talk about next?
I've got a question,
Christopher. Yes,
I have a question. So look, I as soon as I read and heard about aggregator leaf tailor, I was in love with it. It looks wonderful. What I do want to see though is what's a real world example of how someone uses Rockset to take advantage of this.
Yeah, so I have more architecture diagrams to talk about. Let's bring it on.
Bring on the architecture.
You're going to remember me as architecture diagram girl. Watch it. Okay, let's go. So Rockset has, I'm going to talk about a few customers, and one of them is Seesaw. So Seesaw has a learning platform and is in the edtech space, and it's used by millions of teachers, students, and parents. And when the pandemic hit, schools switched from in-school learning to virtual learning. And as a result, the platform had increased usage. Students were posting quite a bit, and also their customer base also increased as well. So with this increased usage, Seesaw's platform needed to mature its data infrastructure. in such a way that they need to build better internal analytics so they can understand how customers are using the platform and they can build better experiences. And this is where Rockset comes in. So Seesaw, if you look at the diagram, use Rockset to basically power their internal analytics. So what we have there is you have like teachers and students that are doing some sort of activity. Oh, yeah, I saw that. Who is that? You?
That was me. My kids
Oh,
use Seesaw, and my wife
cool.
is a teacher, and she uses Seesaw as well. It's like everywhere. Nice.
Yeah. They're a really cool Rockset customer and an AWS customer, DynamoDB. Yeah. So they have these activities and they store their transactional data in DynamoDB. Now on Rockset side, Rockset can integrate with DynamoDB, and just a TLDR, the way that does this is you just give read permissions to Rockset by setting up your IAM policy and role. And once that's set up, then you can Rockset can ingest data coming from DynamoDB. Now, anytime there's an incremental update on DynamoDB, Rockset can register that change within a couple of seconds. So it's always in sync with DynamoDB. On the Rockset platform, Seesaw engineers can write complex analytical queries that join and aggregate data to power their user analytics. Now, from there, they can turn the SQL query into a data API. And I can show later like how we do this, but they can turn it into an API and that provides a RESTful endpoint. Now, separately, they can use that RESTful endpoint on Retool to build real-time internal tools to power their internal analytics. And on Retool, you just plug it in, make an HTTP post request, and then you get the results and you see it on Retool. Separately, you can do a reverse ETL, and they did this by using High Touch, and they store the results into Salesforce. And so this is how they did a real-time reporting architecture.
Nice. That's how it works. So I will look on when I open Seesaw, and when the Seesaw send me lots of notifications about what my kids are doing. I will look on it with a different lens next time. So thanks, Nadine. Any other customer?
There's another customer that I touched upon earlier, and it's Command Alkon, and this is actually a really cool real-time logistics use case. So I talked a little bit about it, but I didn't really go into detail about some of their pain points. But Command Alkon is like one of the leading provider of a cloud-based construction software. And basically, they actually handle 80% of concrete delivery tickets in North America. So they're a big hub when it comes to concrete. They get hundreds of millions of tickets annually, and they have a platform called the Connects platform, where users can search through tickets and see the status of the tickets and so on and so forth. So one of the problems that Command Alkon was facing was they needed to be able to filter and search through fields on the ticket data and understand that, and they needed to anticipate some access patterns. Right, and they didn't know because it was unknown, right? You have users searching through the platform. The second thing that they needed to do was they needed to make the ticket data available within a couple of seconds. And so this is where they paired DynamoDB with Rockset. Similar to like a Seesaw, they just gave read permissions to Rockset by setting up the IAM policy and role. And then from there, as I mentioned earlier, when we talked about the ALT architecture, when data is ingested, it's automatically indexed through a converged index. And to recap, this is where each filled in document is indexed via row, column, and store index. And as a result, because of the indexing, you don't need to anticipate these access patterns. And this enabled Command Alkon to actually have ad hoc queries on their data and also have incredible query performance to serve the ticket data to their users. And so, and then, once they get the results similar to Seesaw, they power their user-facing analytics, they power their internal analytics with that, and they can see the status of how things are going. This is how they enable customers to see, where the concrete is at.
Nice, cool, another cool use case. Thanks, Nadine. So. That's all very cool, but quite complex. Is it hard to get started? How would a humble software developer like me get started?
Oh, come on, you're generous. I can show you how to get started. So let me go. I'm going to log into the console, and I'm just going to switch my environment really quick to Rockset Nadine. So let me just do that switch really quickly. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do to get started is you're going to go to rockset.com. Pretty simple. And then we have a try free. So you can just click try free. If you already have an account, you can just log in, or you can do this through the AWS marketplace, doesn't matter. But you can just click on try free. When you get try free, you can start a trial. You get $300 in credits and bonus. You don't even need to swipe your credit card for all of this. You just sign up, and then once you get authenticated, you'll be able to log into the console, which is console.rockset.com. So you'll have an environment that kind of just looks something like this. And so the first thing you're going to want to do is you want to be able to just do a quick start guide. So let me just go to rockset.com/docs. And then I'm just going to point here, and I can share this as well, but we have a quick start guide here. I can actually just post this in the chat too, really quickly. Let me just type in the chat. But yeah, you can just get started on the quick side, and then we have a sample data sets of how to write queries and things like that. So we kind of walk you through this example, but since we're live, we're going to walk you through live.
Yeah, we love it.
So you have a collection. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to click on create a collection. I'm just going to work with a sample data set because when you try, that's what exactly you're going to do anyways. But you can see all the data sources we support. We'll just do a tour guide here. We support DynamoDB. We talked a lot about DynamoDB today. DynamoDB is great. But we talked about Kinesis, but you can see we support all these sources. And also, if a source is not here that you want to use, you can also write directly to a collection through the Write API. And we have an SDK and stuff to do that. And then we get into the sample data sets. So you can click on the public data sets, and you can see all of them. But then you can see we're going to work with the film rating. So I'm just going to click on start. And then you'll be brought to this area here of creating a collection. A collection is just where all the records are going to be stored. That's coming in this case, from S3. You can see the source preview of what the data looks like. And then also you can actually configure, you can actually do SQL transformation and rollups at ingest time. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So we talked about ingest compute versus query compute. And here, when you're doing analytical queries, it takes up compute. But doing these types of transformations, so what we're doing when we're tri-casting, we're basically casting one type to another data type. In this, I'm assuming we're casting a movie ID that comes in as a string to an integer type, and a similar thing with user ID. But instead of running this at query time, you can run this at ingest time and kind of save on your compute resources that way. Rollups is a great example as well. When you're doing rollups at ingest time, and I mean at where we're at right now in this window at ingest time, you can actually save on storage because you're rolling up the data all the time. So you can decrease your storage costs in storage and also improve your query performance as well. So this is the advantage of doing rollups and transformation at ingest time. But assuming everything looks great and you've done all of this, you can keep your document retention, and then you just create a collection. So I'm just gonna, create a collection. All right, sample collection.
Come on, demo gods, be kind.
Oh, if it fell, that would be pretty bad. That's great. Okay, so we're creating a collection. But I already have like a collection created that we can work out of. So we have a ratings collection. So instead of wasting time to get that created, we're just gonna go ahead and create this collection. And you can see that you can select star, and then you can see the results over here. But actually I have like a better demo that I can share over here. So one thing that we can do with Rockset is you can join different collections from different data sources. It doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove this, and then I'm going to go ahead and paste this query. And I'm just going to kind of organize it so it's easy to read. And I'll walk you through this. Basically, we're going to get the top 5 movie titles with the genres that they belong to. And in order to do that, we're going to need to join the ratings collection with the movies collection. So the movies has the detail about the movie information, things like that. And the ratings collections has the ratings for the movie. But each one of those collections has a movie ID, which you can join on, right? And then you can see the genres they belong to as well as the ratings. And then you can, if you're one thing you can do is on the left, you can see the schemas basically. So if I click on, where's movie data. If I click on the ratings, for example, you can see all the available fields are there that you can query. You can also do a describe as well, but that's that.
Okay.
So when I run this, you can see that I get the title, the rating, the name, and then finally I can turn this into a data API. So to do this, I can save this as a query Lambda, and I can write data
That's cool.
API 1, and I'll just save it under AWS, and then I'll create the query Lambda. So now we actually turn this query into a RESTful endpoint. And now when I click on show details, you can see that we get a RESTful endpoint, and then you can also just execute it in a terminal. I would just need to replace my API key over here, and then I can execute it. And then you get the how to do this on the SDKs, Python or JS. You can see the SQL, the collection it belongs to. You can even version it as well over here. So if I need to update the query, I can version it. And then you can see there's also metrics for your usage, like how many query count, the query latency, and so on and so forth. So
that is very cool. That is very cool.
That's how you get started. It's really easy.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah, I'm going to have a play with that, because that is really interesting. The fact you can create an API endpoint on a query in just like you did there now is just fantastic. Like, that's very powerful in itself. Thanks Nadine. That was great. And
it did come up with Match Point as the highest rated movie. I've never seen that.
Oh wait, say that again.
Is that a mistake?
Yep. Is it Match Point is a classic Woody Allen movie, I believe, from the early 2000s,
Right.
set in London around the Wimbledon tennis tournament.
Wow.
Yes. Sorry, I watch a lot of movies.
Yeah, we just happen to pick the one movie that Derek knows about.
I actually am not a movie guru, so I'm like.
Yeah, I know a lot of useless information. Great, Nadine. That was great. So as we're in the show is actually called Building SaaS. Let's jump into a more SaaS related question. So I think Sunil, you're gonna kick us off with our SaaS related questions.
Sure. I think when it comes to ease of adoption, how does Rockset fit into my existing data set? And do you mind double clicking all the AWS services which Rockset seamlessly integrates with?
Yeah, so your question was, how does Rockset fit into like a data stack or an infrastructure? Yeah. So I kind of shared a few architecture diagrams of how Seesaw and Command Alkon were using Rockset. And both examples, they were leveraging DynamoDB for their transactional data, and then complemented it with Rockset to do aggregation, joins, and searches to either power their internal or user-facing analytics. So Rockset really fits into your data infrastructure when you need to do complex analytics and you want to combine, for example, historical data with streaming data to provide real-time insights. And I think it's like one last diagram I can share.
Oh,
we're not done yet. You can tell I did not make this slide. It's not like these other slides.
No, I'm sure you did. You've been humble.
So since Rockset can automatically ingest and index data, right? You can avoid ETLs. Really great examples with Kinesis data, and we deal with real live streaming data, semi-structured enable, and we're just able to run SQL analytics on it. And since Rockset is built for the cloud, you can provision resources as you need them, when you need them. And we talked a lot about scaling compute and storage independently with the ALT architecture and how Rockset does that. From there, you can turn your queries into data APIs, which then can be consumed by your data application that can power your user in internal analytics. And I just gave an example with the Hello World that we did. So in short, like Rockset is really designed to be efficient for real-time analytics. And one of the ways it can do that is like with rollups and SQL transformations. I showed that with the movie data set, that how you can just run that at ingest time and save on compute resources because you're not running it all the time. It's just a one-time thing that you're running it. And then since Rockset is a mutable database, you can avoid expensive merge operations when it comes to updating a field, right? When there's a change. So all this, along with converge index, means that you don't have to worry about access patterns. You can avoid intensive scans, which is something that a data warehouse does, and so on and so forth. So Rockset is really designed to be really easy to use, to be really efficient, to analyze real-time data so you can get real-time insights.
That's awesome, Nadine. So building on that and talking through SaaS, I am one of the world's biggest advocates for SaaS and something called product-led growth. And so you mentioned before about a free tier or being able to get and credits. I'm also a credit fiend for anything I can get for free. So can you talk through what are the tiers, what are the pricing, starting with free? What does that look like?
Yeah, so yes, we do have a free tier, and you can get started on the trial like I showed earlier, and then you can get started with some sample data sets. But with Rockset, you can Rockset has what we call like a virtual instance where you can scale compute and memory resources by picking a virtual instance size. And a virtual instance is just like an allocated amount of compute and memory to really run your workload. So and you can pick virtual instance sizes so it scales with you as your workload, as you grow, and so on and so forth. So on a shared instance, you can get started for just like $9 a month. And then as you scale up to your production workloads, you can scale up the virtual instances. I quickly share my screen to kind of, you can kind of read more on it. Let's see, rockset.com/docs. I keep going to our docs page. It's pretty awesome. Let's see, virtual instances. Oh, here we go. And this is like kind of like the compute type that you'll need, the memory that's that is offered, and also like the ingest speeds as well. So I can share that with you as well. I'll post this in the chat as well. Let me just do that right now. But yeah, that's really how you can get started. Yeah, and with the $300 credits, I can add that you can pick different virtual instance sizes. So if I go back to the console really quick, and I have $300 in credit, and I want to make use of them, and I want to kind of demo how these how compute can work with my different workloads. You can just pick a virtual instance size and then switch the instance pretty easily, and that's how you can do that. And then you can scale back down.
Awesome. The beauty of the cloud. So do you see a lot of people, do you see a lot of customers going from, one employee, one user, scaling then up to the whole company and then being advocates? Does that happen reasonably frequently?
Yeah, it actually does. So what we see in Rockset a lot of times is that when a user starts, like when a customer or an engineer gets started on Rockset, they'll kick the tires a little bit. They might play a data set, but really they'll start kind of working with their data set. And they're like, okay, how can I ingest from, let's say, DynamoDB into Rockset? Then they'll write their analytical queries, and they'll be like, oh, this is magic. This is a literal quote from Rumble, Yaron Levi, who was the solution architect at Rumble. And then they'll be like, I can, build this prototype, like my user-facing or internal analytics, within a couple of days. And another really cool story that we have is with John Farr from Sounding Board. John just got hired at Sounding Board, and he needed to work with extremely nested, complex data from MongoDB. And literally his quote was, Rockset made me a day 3 hero on my job, which is pretty crazy, right? So he had deeply nested JSON data on MongoDB. And without Rockset, what he would have done is he would have to build an ETL package, extract the data from MongoDB, transform it into a format that could later be consumed and stored on a data warehouse. And by doing that, your data latency goes up. There's a lot of complexity around, kind of massaging the data and things like that. So with Rockset, he just simply ingested data from MongoDB and was able to do complex multi-joins with multiple levels of nesting, by using the unnest function, which I just shared earlier with the Kinesis stream, really easy. And then he got his queries down from, 3,500 some milliseconds to, just a little over 150 milliseconds. And this was possible because of Converge Index. With Converge Index, because we index all the fields, we can infer the data type in the fields automatically. So by day 3, he was ready to demo with his stakeholders. He used Retool. I think this was Seesaw's example. He created an endpoint to his query, like I showed with the S3 getting started guide. He plugged that into Retool, and he was able to show the data, their nested data, of what they've been wanting to see for a long time, because it was really difficult data to work with. So that's a really great story and a champion that happened within a couple of days at Rockset.
That's great. That's great.
Very cool. I'll jump in, Nadine. We have another great question from Terry Dad. Thanks, Terry Dad, for all your questions. This one is, how is Rockset able to run SQL on nested JSON? Isn't that inefficient?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I touched a little bit with converge index with the indexing method. And because of that, you can infer the fields and the data types. But really, when you think about real-time analytics, queries are always meant to be turned on. It's not like once in a while you're running the queries. You're always running the queries. So in this case, indexing is really efficient because you want fast retrieval and efficient retrieval of the data. So yeah, I think that.
Cool. Awesome. Hopefully that answered your question for you, Terry Dad. So I'm going to jump into security, because we all talk about security on the SaaS show. So I'm just interested in, so we're going to be storing a lot of data, and obviously security is a paramount concern. So could you, Nadine, maybe talk through how Rockset secures this data and ensures compliance with some of the big standards out there?
Yeah, so Rockset takes security and privacy really seriously. We also have a security white paper out there. I can share that later. But since Rockset was born in the cloud, all our infrastructure is hosted on AWS, and all our infrastructure is managed as code, which allows us to apply security controls and policies evenly across all of our environments. All our data is encrypted in transit and at rest, and we use like the AWS Cert Manager as well, which is directly attached to our AWS load balancers. We support SSO, RBAC, role-based access, and we have an IP allow list and some other things as well. And I can point to the docs about that as well. In terms of compliance, we are SOC 2, Type 2, HIPAA, GDPR, and CCPA compliant.
Nice. I think Sunil has found something. I'm going to push it up as well. There's a white paper on Rockset security design. If you want to go into more details, Rockset, nice pull. Nice find, Sunil. Thanks for pushing it to me, and that's great. So I think we're coming to the end of the show. If anybody has any further questions for Nadine about Rockset and building SaaS on AWS, now is your chance before we wrap up. We've probably got a couple of minutes left. So while you're thinking of those questions, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. First of all, Christopher, have you had a good show today?
Always.
Sunil, have you enjoyed yourself? Has this been your first stream?
Yep, it's wonderful, and wonderful to hear about Rockset. Takeaway for me was the ability to create collections from various different data sources and able to query them. And these collections can be from DynamoDB, Kinesis, RDS, or various different data sources from AWS can be transformed to a collection. So wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, great point about the just the breadth of connections that you can make into Rockset. Fantastic, and you weren't tempted by your piano at all, Sunil, to give us a little tickle of the ivories.
It's never too late. It's never too late. We have 2 minutes left.
We'll wait. Just walk back there.
Any requests? If anybody has a request for Sunil to play on his piano, just stick it in the chat, and I'm sure we can arrange that. So thanks, Sunil. And finally,
it's on the end credits.
It's all the end credits, of course. and last but not least, Nadine, thanks for joining us on Building on SaaS today. It's a fantastic show. Any parting thoughts before we wrap up?
No, we're always hosting events and stuff. So one thing you can check out is our community at community.rockset.com. And we're planning some things, I'm sure, with AWS, so you can find out there. If you're curious about Rockset and you're curious about the technology and you're like, yes, I want to build user-facing analytics, you can check out our free trial as well.
Cool. Awesome. Great. Great demos. Great overview of the product, Nadine. And I've just pushed the community link there. So thanks everybody for joining us for Building on SaaS. We only had one comment and a request from Mr. Cloudy Cloud of a rendition of a Barry Manilow song. So we'll be playing out today with Sunil playing a Barry Manilow song for us. Yes. Thanks everybody again. Thanks for joining us. He thinks I'm joking, and we'll see you again in another 2 weeks for Building SaaS on AWS. Bye.
All right. Thank you.
Bye everybody. Bye. Bye.
Yeah.